Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for June 5th, 2025. After last weekend's attacks on Russia coming from Ukraine and from NATO, there was a tweet put out by Ray McGovern, the former CIA analyst and peace activist, in which he said, "Mr. Trump, speak to Putin urgently." Well, a call was made between Trump and Putin yesterday, and the reports we have on it so far were that it was an hour and 15-minute call. President Trump said it was a good conversation, but he did make a couple of additional points that are worth noting. He said, first of all, it was a good conversation, but he then said it will not lead to immediate peace, as Putin said that there must be a retaliation against Ukraine for this attack. And Trump also said that he said to President Putin that the United States had not been given advance notice of the attack. Well, if that's true, and it may be, the question then is, who did order the attack? And the consensus from our investigations appears to be that it came from the British, most likely, possibly from certain NATO circles, but more likely the British, and perhaps some holdovers of the old Biden team. Now, given that, we have to look at the question of where do things go from here. And in analyzing this, in today's Executive Intelligence Review Daily News, my colleague Dennis Small made a very interesting point by referring to an article by Lyndon LaRouche on December 23, 2001, in the aftermath of 9/11. And what LaRouche said is of high relevance for what we're talking about today. He talked about the call that Putin made to Bush immediately after the 9/11 attack, in which Putin said, one, Russia had nothing to do with this attack, and offering to help the United States, he said, quote, "In the name of Russia, I want to say to the American people, we are with you." And LaRouche pointed out that this had a very important effect in dampening the anticipated reaction coming from the people who ran the 9/11 operation, namely that this could trigger a war between the United States and Russia. And that's what they wanted, a showdown between the U.S. and Russia. And what was the issue then? The establishment of the West around the City of London and Wall Street was pushing for a confrontation between the U.S. and Russia as part of a drive for a global dictatorship, what later became known as the Great Reset, to destroy the idea of sovereign nations working together, which was implicitly on the table from the post-1990s Russia side of Russia, and also from Lyndon LaRouche's organization and his commitment to a new financial system outside of the control of the City of London, Wall Street, the IMF, and the other financial institutions. The attempt from the pro-war party was to have a series of wars that would that would justify Shakti and austerity, and would be an attack on those countries that were moving to break with the colonial system. And that is the swindling system of financialization that had grown up after the end of the Cold War. Now, that was in 2001. We see the same thing today. And I want to start by a comment from Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, who said at a meeting that was addressed by Putin yesterday, he said that there are certain circles in the U.S., so he's still referring to the Biden, Blinken, Sullivan, Hillary Clinton, Susan Rice circles, who are organizing for a, quote, for eradicating Russia as a state. And this is something we've been discussing, that they, in order to prevent the emergence of an alliance of Europe with Eurasia that would break the power once and for all of the old imperial system, They would prefer wars. They would prefer austerity. They would prefer to save the financial system not by production, but by a radical escalation toward financialization, of looting the physical economy to pay down the debts of the speculative economy. So look at the world that was created in the aftermath of 2001, after the 9/11 attacks. You had the Afghan War, the Iraq War, Libya, the 2011 launching of the operation in Syria, and then the Ukraine coup in 2014. Now, this has all been part of an operation to destroy the potential for the global South to link up with European states, with Russia, with China, and has pitted the United States and the British in particular against that potential alliance. Now, that potential alliance is the center of resistance to this great reset and this global order. Now, there are some fools out there who say, well, Russia and China are part of it. They say that Xi spoke at the World Economic Forum and Putin is soft on this and blah, 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 blah. People who say such things are showing a profound ignorance of the direction of policy coming from the globalists. What they want is to destroy the potential for an alternative system. That's why Russia and China are the primary targets of the war hawks. And that's why a solution to this depends on bringing the United States in to collaboration with Russia and China. And that's why they are so hostile to Trump. Now, I'm not saying Donald Trump has the answer to everything, but Trump has made it clear that he wants peace and normalized relations with Russia. He wants to talk to China. He wants to have, in a sense, make up for his mistake in his first term of ending the JCPOA with Iran. So there's a potential now for the United States to come out against these policies of permanent war and permanent oppression. And that's why there's a continuing attack on what Donald Trump is trying to do. Now, that just shows the desperation of London. And you have the sputtering Starmer, who's running around saying Britain is now war ready. Same thing that the German Defense Minister Pistorius was saying last year, that Germany must become war ready. Now, that's what BlackRock's Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, has been saying. A massive rearmament campaign to do what? To put Germany into a war with Russia? What kind of lunacy is that? So the important thing is the resistance is growing. Many people in the West have become aware of the fact that they're being played for fools, that this permanent war policy is not a sign of the strength of the Western democracies, but actually a sign of their degeneracy and the control by an autocracy of an oligarchy which is committed to war to defend their special private interests over and above the common interests of both the people of the United States and our potential allies. Besides the resistance from the global South, we see Hungary, we see Slovakia, we see the votes in Romania, which had to be overturned twice to make sure that a pro-EU official was elected. But we saw the results in Poland this last weekend, which went against the European Union. So it shows that LaRouche has been right. And today we can point to one other factor that has to be addressed, which is the possibility of an assassination of Putin and or Trump, or both of them. That this is something which has emerged from last July's attempt against Trump in Pennsylvania, from the drones that were shot at Putin's helicopter in his recent trip to the Kursk region, and the rhetoric, the hateful rhetoric coming from London, from Kiev, and from Washington, from imbeciles like Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal, the two U.S. senators who were in Kiev when the attack on Russia was launched. So the assassination threat is something which has been real. We call it an International Assassination Bureau based on our studies over time of something called Operation Gladio, which was a NATO operation which included constant use of terrorism against those who were looking for rapprochement and an end to the tension of the danger of nuclear war. To win this fight, the best way of approaching it is to understand what LaRouche knew and why he knew it. And toward that end, there are a couple of things I have for you that can give you some insights into how to proceed in your organizing to build a resistance to this permanent war, permanent depression policy. First, listen to the dialogue that was done yesterday between Helga Zepp-LaRouche and Ray McGovern. There's a link to it in the description section. It's a fascinating review of history from someone who was there as a top CIA analyst and presidential briefer, who has the insights that he then shared with Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the widow of Lyndon LaRouche, and a profound strategic thinker on her own. Secondly, circulate the LaRouche Organization leaflet, Step Back from the Brink of World War III. You can find that at the schillerinstitute.com website. Third, listen to the Schiller Institute conference from May 24th and 25th. I have a link to that in the description section. Very profound discussions on over 2 days of 6 different panels. And finally, join our Zoom call of the International Peace Coalition this Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And on top of that, you should subscribe to the EIR Daily News. Listen to how Ray McGovern, in his discussion with Helga, ends the program by praising the work that we do every single day. Those of you who listen to my daily update and Diane Sayre joins on 1 day a week, we get our intelligence from the EIR Daily News. We're involved in producing it and in using that, and it's available to you very cheaply. So we need the LaRouche solution. We need it now. It's important that Putin and Trump talked, but that's not the solution. That's a step in the right direction. Tomorrow, by the way, is Friday, as you probably know. I take your questions on Friday. You can send them to me at Harley,